Hey there, Photo Universe. Okay, basic photography. This isn't even 101, this is 001. We're going to talk about exposure and the 3 pillars of exposure. We've talked about shutter speeds, we talked about apertures, but we're going to talk about the 3 things that affect your exposure, or the 3 things you can affect to make your exposure proper or improper. Okay, just for technical analysis. We have our trusty MX here because the MX makes it clear to see what we're doing. So the 3 things we've got are apertures, shutter speeds over here, and ISO, which on the MX is labeled ASA, but it's ISO nowadays. So on our digital cameras, we still have these 3 things. And if you're worried about your exposure and you want to know about exposure, you want to mess with your aperture, your shutter speeds, and your ISO. So this is going to be an overview of the big picture. Okay, so let's start with ISO. What is So the 3 pillars of exposure are shutter speeds, aperture, and ISO. Let's get rid of the MX. Alright, is that on the screen? Sure is, there we go. Okay. So shutter speeds are, this deals with time. Your aperture is the size of the hole in your lens. And it's the size of the hole in your lens. The ISO is the sensitivity, that isn't G, you know, I can't spell. Anyway, it's the sensitivity of your film slash sensor. Sensitivity, sensor, well, you get it. Okay, so those are the 3 things. Time. So 1/60th of a second, okay? That would be a shutter speed, okay? Aperture, f8, okay? And that's just the convention. That's what, you know, like there are f2.8, f4, f5.6, f8, okay? So the 60th of a second at f8, what's your ISO? Well, let's say it's set at 100, okay? Now, here's what you need to understand. If you move any one of these 1 stop up, and you move any of the other ones 1 stop down, you've accomplished the same thing. Okay? So let's say we make the hole bigger, and we go to f5.6, okay? That's 1 stop more light. Well, you know what? If we went to ISO 50, which is 1 stop less sensitivity, at 1/60th of a second, both at 1/60th of a second, that's equal. That shutter speed is, that exposure value is equal. Okay? We went down 1 here and up 1 here. Okay? So let's do another example. Where's my eraser? Over here. Okay, so let's say we go 1/30th of a second. We let in 1/30th of a second more light. Half again as much light. Okay, we stay at f8 and we go to 50th. We go to 50 ISO. Same exposure. 1 stop less sensitivity, 1 stop more light. Okay, all right. Now, digital photographers who were in the film era, and I'm one of them, tend to leave our ISOs alone. We don't see that as a sliding thing because we used to choose our film, you know, Fuji Velvia 50, and we were stuck with that. Okay, so we tend to move these things around, but really technically with these new cameras, like with the K5, the Nikon D7000, the Canon, 3Ti, 2Ti, you can shoot up to about 800 easily, okay, and get the same image quality. See, this is all about image quality on ISO. All right, So we can now play games with ISO. I will shoot up to 800, 1600 ISOs depending upon my subject sometimes nowadays. So that is something, that's a new thing. This is really the new thing that came about in the digital age. Because in film, we were stuck with whatever film we had. So over here, photographers are much more comfortable. If we drop to 1/30th of a second here and we go to f5.6 here, those are equal exposures. Those equal each other, okay? 1/30th at f5.6 is equal to 1/60th at f8. 1/60th is a stop slower than 1/30th, and f5.6 is a stop faster than f8. If you can figure that out, you've got exposure down, okay? I mean, that's where it's at. All right, we can go the other way too. We can go up to f11, okay? And guess what has to happen over here? Did I screw that up? I screwed that up. Okay, this should have been f11, and this should have been 1/30th. Okay, a stop darker here, a stop lighter here. Got it? If we went the other way like I just did and I screwed it up and we went f5.6, okay, we opened up a stop here, we opened up a stop here. This exposure is 2 stops brighter than that exposure. Okay? So that's what we're talking about. See how easy it is to screw it up? All right? But it's not that hard when you're doing it because you take a picture with your digital camera and it gets lighter, it gets darker. Okay? All right? So for you advanced people, I'll just throw this in here. Ansel Adams had the zone system, right? So we had 10 ranges of light with zone 5 right in the middle, right? That would be 18% gray, kind of a medium gray, right? Okay? All right? So zone 5 was kind of a medium gray. If you opened up a stop brighter, you were at 6. A stop brighter than that, you were at 7. A stop darker, right? You go down a stop, 1 stop darker, would be zone 4. So this would be getting dark gray. Zone 3 would be black almost. Okay? Black with detail. Zone 2 would be black with no detail. So if you want to go to black with no detail, you only need to go 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3 stops. 3 stops darker than your zone 5 metering will give you. But that's another time, that's another subject. So there we are. That is the 3 pillars of exposure right there. Okay? So, you know, this is what you need to focus on. Shutter speeds, apertures, and ISOs. Figure out what they are, figure out how they work, figure out what they do, figure out what their scales are, and figure out how they interrelate to each other, and you've got exposure down. Okay? So, sorry about the confusion there when I went the wrong way, but we're better now, and hopefully that'll be an example to you, and you'll figure this out. That's Ed with Photo Universe. Ed with Photo Universe, and this is the basics of exposure, the big picture. All right, have a good one. Any questions, put them in the comments. I'll try to get back to you. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.